was one of the most striking signs a crisis was unfolding. On one side of the chain, farmers' heartbreak as harvests never left the farm. On the other, supermarket shelves stripped of essential supplies. In a matter of weeks, the coronavirus had exposed the fragility of our global food system, a system that survives on a razor's edge. Covid-19 won't be the first or the last crisis that the world faces, but is it the wake-up call needed to reform the way food gets from farm to fork? That's this week on Down to Earth. In the United States, the pandemic has upended the meat supply chain, with major plants closed amid outbreaks. The country's largest meat producer, Tyson Foods, has warned Americans to expect ongoing disruptions and shortages. That's despite President Donald Trump stepping in. Peter O'Brien with this next report.
For this farm in Minnesota, it's just a matter of time. The world's biggest meat companies have halted operations at more than a dozen huge slaughterhouses in North America, and millions of pigs, chickens and cows will be euthanized.
At some point, if we aren't able to market hogs, something will have to give. We just won't have enough space to house all the animals that we have.
There's been a waste of human life as well. As the coronavirus spread rapidly in slaughterhouses across the US, Saul Sanchez was one of around 20 workers to die from it.
His main concern was me calling his job and letting them know that he was in the hospital, he was going to be fine, and he was going to be returning back to work on Monday, and for them not to worry. And after that, didn't see him again.
With large chunks knocked off production capacity and industry leaders warning of nationwide shortages, Donald Trump invoked emergency powers at the end of April, declaring the closure of meatpacking plants a threat to critical infrastructure.
We solved that problem yesterday. I expect to see the supply chain as strong as ever, maybe stronger for certain reasons.
The order aims to provide legal cover to plants that keep working, so they're less liable as their workers fall sick. But even as plants begin to reopen, it's unclear how many employees will return. Some supermarket chains like Costco have begun rationing meat. The supply is in the hands of a few giants. A big plant slaughters around 100 times as many pigs as a small one. Some experts say letting a handful of firms dominate the supply chain has made the industry more efficient, but at the price of extreme vulnerability in moments like this.
When meat giant Tyson Foods placed full-page ads in various US newspapers, 6 words stood out most. The food supply chain is breaking. Be it meat in the United States or rice in the west of Africa, COVID-19 has revealed weaknesses and inequalities in the way our food is produced and distributed. Olivier Descouteur is co-chair of the International Panel of Experts on Sustainable Food Systems, and he says we're now paying the price for this emphasis on efficiency.
Our system as it is has been conceived, designed in order to be as efficient as possible. Efficiency, meaning uniformity, meaning economies of scale, meaning specialization, was prioritized at the expense of resilience. And we need to reshift our efforts from the search for efficiency to the search for resilience. Resilience being the ability for a system to withstand a shock, whether it's climatic, sanitary, or economic. We have many examples today of countries who are facing the risk of having to pay higher prices in the future for what they import, which is okay when it's a rich country with a high purchasing power. But for example, for Western African countries who import rice from the Far East or from South Asia, it may be a very significant problem to have developed such a dependency on imports.
The UN is now warning of a hunger pandemic in the wake of the health one. Across the world, an increasing number of people face food insecurity. In April in Kenya, this food aid distribution event descended into a violent stampede in the informal settlement of Kibera, leaving scores injured and 2 dead. Here in South Africa, aerial footage shows thousands of people queuing for kilometres to access food parcels. And there are countless images of food banks in Europe overwhelmed with demand. The World Food Programme has predicted the coronavirus crisis could almost double the number of people on the brink of starvation, pushing it to 265 million in 2020 compared to 135 million in 2019.
This is not because there is not enough food produced. In fact, the global food reserves that stand at some 275 million tons are extremely good, and the levels of reserves are quite high. But the supply chains may be disrupted. People may be unable to travel to work and thus do not have enough revenue. And the farm workers and the workers in the food industry may fall sick, and therefore the levels of production in the future may be under threat.
That brings us to the end of this week's show. We'll, of course, be keeping you up to date on the latest environment developments, but don't go anywhere because there's more news coming up here on France 24.